everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about making a simple budget and basically how you're going to do that to start the process of paying off debt or increasing your savings, kind of depending on what your goal is. So that's the first step here. You're going to want to make a goal. You want to put that over here at the top. Now I just handwrite mine, and then you can always get fancy and put it in the computer too if you want, but it just helps me to kind of address my ideas. So you want to make a goal up here, decrease or pay off debt. If you want to increase your savings, let's say you're saving to go on a trip or something like that, whatever your goal is as to why you're making the budget to begin with. So you want to do that first, and then you're going to put all of, now I gave realistic amounts on my bills just because I don't know how much other bills are, so I was trying to be as realistic as possible. I didn't put down how much I actually earn since I'm not really allowed to do that, but we're gonna go with just basically, like, since these are bills that I know that are paid, so that's the way it's somewhat realistic. So so these are fixed expenses first. Let's talk about that. So I divided everything into fixed expenses, meaning things that we have to have. Now there are some things that are varied. For example, groceries, that's varied because of the fact that you can control how much you spend on that. So you might not want to put your budgeted amount down right away, but things that you have to pay and you don't really have much choice in how much you pay for are like the mortgage example or rent. So we've got that amount here. This is like natural gas for the house. So this is how much the real bill was. And then this is also varied too. So that's why it's important to do a monthly budget, because you have to try to figure out what is it every month that you're going to need to actually come out with. Now, gas for the car, also that can be varied too. So that's another thing, because you can make less trips out, do things like that. But there's a certain amount you're going to have because obviously you have to get to work. You have electricity, so that's that bill over here. You've got your auto insurance, that's usually a fixed amount, so that's kind of set. Your phone bill, another thing that's set. Internet, you know, I mean, some of these things you have variance on, and we'll talk about that later as far as how to get bills down, but these are things that, you know, you have to pay every month, otherwise you don't have them. And most people need these basic things. So then at that point, you're going to go into like the sewer bill, the garbage bill. Again, these things, I put little marks next to them because they're not every month, but it just happened to be this month they were due. So you've got your car payment here. Again, that's another thing that you do have a choice as far as you could sell the car if you were in dire straits, but I'm just going to play like we're not here. So, and then you've got your water bill as well. And of course, these things are contingent on the area in which you live, but I'm just giving you an example of like how much I pay, and then we can kind of go from there. So you've got your adjustable expenses over here. These are just some basic ones here that I calculated out. So you've got your household, that's like your, you know, shampoo you need or dish soap and things like that. So I had written down $50 a month just for some basic things. And then you've got your savings, which that calculated out at the end, so don't worry about that just yet. And these things, basically you don't do those right away. So you're just going to leave these blank, but just write down your categories and things that you would want. Entertainment, because it's boring to stay at home all the time, so you might want to have some sort of budget to maybe go out once a month or something like that. So we'll leave all these things blank for now, just basically writing down your categories. Then next you're going to want to write down your debt. So basically your part you're going to fill out is your debt, what the bills are exactly. I just wrote down general credit cards. These ones I'm just using as examples here. And then you've got the due date. You want to get the interest rate and how much the balance is. So these are some examples here. Most likely if it's a credit card, it's going to be a lot more than that, but for example purposes, I'm going to use something a little simpler. And then you want to write down all of your paychecks here. So of course these are like example paychecks. So let's just say that you have a 2-person income coming in. It gets divided bi-weekly. So basically you'll write down how much is expected, and then over here you want to write down when the due date of those payments come in. So you just want to write that down here. Then we have an approximation. And then at that point, let's go back up to the top. So what I do is not only do I write out the amount that is needed, but I'll also write the due dates. That way I know. Now some of them say varied, and that's because it's like groceries. They're not always on the same time, you know, and plus it's more than once. And then you want to write down the frequency of how often you pay them, if it's monthly, bi-weekly, again, monthly, weekly, like groceries are weekly for us. So it kind of just depends. And then two, if you have weird bills like we do, where we have some that are bi-monthly, you want to write down over here what months you have to pay them. So it's like February, March, June, September, November. And then up here I just wrote for the garbage bill, it's another S for because it's the same. And then down here this is the same. So you just basically want to have that filled out first, so you have an just a scheme of what is going on. Again, we left this blank. Over here we're going to put the due dates of the credit cards as well, and as I said, the interest and the balance. Now this amount leave blank until the end because you need to find out how much you can actually budget for your credit card payments. Alright, we've covered this, this, and this. Okay, so what we're going to do now that we've got all these amounts up here, the important amounts, you want to total these here, all the amounts of, this is like your basic income that you have to have. Now, groceries, go ahead and leave that blank just because of the fact that we can adjust that expense later. So everything else minus groceries first. Then at that point, you'll come all the way down here. Okay, this is what you have left over, let's say. So I kind of tallied mine up a little wrong here, but let's say you have this amount left over. I've already accounted for the groceries, so ignore me on that part. This is just what you have left over. Then you're going to divide that up into the categories that you have left over. So if we didn't have, if I hadn't messed up here, we would have this and this together, okay? So let's say I said, okay, well, we need this $250 to go back up to groceries. So this is what we have left over for other categories, okay? That's for the debt, that's for like the household budget, entertainment budget, savings, etc. So that's what I had left over there. So then I'm going to take that amount up here and divide it up into these categories as to how much I'm going to be able to break up. So you need some things here to do, like your household. I try to keep it a simple budget. I feel like $50 a month for just some basic things is fine, because some things you don't have to purchase all the time. And then entertainment budget, I'd leave that for the end as well as the savings. Then go down here into your debt and figure out how much you want to invest in these bills here. So you'll have to look at first your minimum balance. So let's say the minimum balance on these is like $20. So you want to pay a little bit more than your minimum, obviously. So there's a few ways you can do this. If you are more savings oriented, you could put more into the savings. If you want to pay debt faster, you could put a little bit less in savings, put more over here. So this is how I broke it up. Let's say the goal is going to be more to put more money in savings and just still pay this off, but using a debt snowball. So what you want to do as far as dividing up the money for the credit card is you want to go with your highest interest rate first, because that's going to accumulate the most extra money to pay. So what I did was put $40 toward that bill, and then from there I did 30 and 30 on these bills because they're fairly similar in the interest payment there. Plus this is what we had to work with. So that's how I divided the money up there. And then at that point, once I figured this out, and then I put down my household budget, we got the groceries up here. Once I figured those things out, the money that I had left over, I said, okay, what do we have left? So I had money for savings and money for entertainment. So the entertainment budget, let's say it's a really tight month, you're going to want to keep this pretty tight. Let's say this budget, you could use this budget for like Netflix or something like that, so you have something to do at home. Or if you don't care about stuff like that, you could use this for like maybe one kind of a cheap going out. And then you also have your savings here, and that's just the leftover money. So that's where I threw all that at. So this is kind of just a general scheme of how you want to do a quick budget. You just want to figure out where you are in the scheme of things. That's why you want to write down all your balances for any debt that you may have, what your paychecks are going to look like. That way you can figure out what exactly to do with your money and divide it up properly. And that way you have a scheme of like, do you have extra money? Are you able to spend a little bit more money? it just helps you to be able to get the lay of the land, so to speak, and also to address what kind of goals you have. If you want to increase your savings versus paying off debt, then you want to write that down, because let's say maybe you have something coming up, you want to travel somewhere, then it might be better for you to put more money in savings versus debt. So it really depends on what your priorities are. So you want to address that all at the same time, and that's why you have this thing written out here. That way you know exactly what you're dealing with. So now that we've covered that, on the next video, we'll be going over the debt snowball and basically what that means to pay off debt fast. So next, what we're going to be doing is doing a, basically I just laid this out as a checking account register to make it a little easier. So basically what I would do is, once I have my bills established, I would at that point go and set up what I'm going to be doing for the month. So you would want to go into online banking services if you have it. Now it depends on how tight you want to keep a close eye on the money. So one option is, which I do now, or I've done in the past, actually I should say, is go in at the beginning of the month and lay out when I want them to pay certain vendors. So I would say specifically on this day, send the payment. And usually what I'll do is send bills off in a chunk, because then I feel like I know where I'm at after those bills are paid, as opposed to paying them right when they're about to come due, because then at that point I feel like if I overspent or something to that effect, I'm out of budget, then I'm gonna know right away I'm out of budget, or I know exactly how much money I have once the bills are sent. So I put little marks over here next to ones that you would want to go ahead and set up payments for if you're not doing automatic payments. So we had the two, let's see, our little direct deposit checks came in. We've got our balance over here of $1,500. So this register is going to be with like a 2-week register, just heads up. So we've got our credit cards. We would go ahead and take those out. We would take out the car insurance. We would take out the phone bill, the internet bill. And then these ones down here are the ones that are just going to be coming along as we do. So basically what we'll be left with at the end of that 2-week period would be $799.94. That's contingent on the fact that there was zero balance in the account, okay? Then at that point, you're going to start off again the next series once you get the paycheck, or if you want to set it up all at the very beginning, you know you're going to get paid on the 15th, for example, go ahead and set up on the beginning of the month that the first or the last day of the month, you're going to be getting a paycheck. It's going to come in. You want to set up all these bills to get paid at the same time. This one here, you would go ahead and pay all these bills at the same time. So this is our 15th through the end of the month section of bills. So basically you would just go ahead and pay off, these are all the due dates for when these were due. So you would go ahead and pay a big chunk of bills there, and then you're just budgeting these smaller amounts out later down the road. So as we keep going down, this is bringing it down to a zero balance, and the reason why is because you have some money that you put in savings. So technically it's not like you're out of money, it's just the money's in savings. So that's why it has zero there. That's accounting for every dollar that we wanted to spend during the month. So what you would want to do, as I said, is go ahead and set up at the very beginning of the month what you plan to do with the money. So if you know for sure what day your paycheck comes in, go ahead and go into the online banking services, say on this day I want all these bills to come out in the exact dollar amounts, save it, and then do the same thing for the next bracket with a different date, obviously. And then at that point, you know that all those bills are going to be taken out, and then it's just up to you to budget these smaller amounts and to be able to control yourself on these things. So that would be obviously your groceries, your savings, and then the gas for the car. That part, you know, obviously you can't control but so much just because of prices and things, but like household and groceries you can control. So for 2 weeks you would have $25 to use, and then for the 2 weeks of groceries it would be $125 to use. So what I do when I have these smaller budgets is I actually break them up into weeks. That way I know exactly how much I have, and it's a little bit easier to account for when you just have half of this amount to account for. So I do weekly grocery shopping, and then I break this amount into half. like this content, feel free to subscribe down below, and thanks for watching.